Okay, so now that we have some idea of what money scripts are and likely what ours might be, especially because we can have more than one at once, this is very common. Our next two steps are going to be one, we want to identify what our core values are. What are our top three? So I've linked a worksheet in the description box by Renee Brown. It's the same worksheet that we used in ACE 242 for our first assignment. And if you happen to know who Renee Brown is, she is a very well-known expert on psychology and emotions. She's a best-selling author. She has done a lot of work in the realm of psychology and emotions and everything of that nature. And so we'll come back to this in a sec, but our first step is to identify our values, and our second is going to be to audit our finances. So by auditing, I mean we want to go over where we spend our money, right? So that for a lot of people, so you can choose what's easiest for you, what works best for you, but for a lot of people, that the easiest way to do this looks like probably just going back over the past month. You can do more than a month, of course, but usually that's typically the bare minimum of time to kind of get a solid picture and look through where you're spending your money. So those are our two next steps. So we'll circle back to auditing, but first I'll get into a little bit more on our values. So it might be fairly self-explanatory, but just in case it's not, I'll give some extra explanation. So the reason why it's so important to be able to identify our values when we're talking about our finances is because money, like anything else, is a tool for us. And like anything else in our lives, we make decisions based on how they serve us, what things they offer us in our life, right? So it's part of financial psychology is, well, really all of it when it comes to the individual financial psychology. It really is genuinely, it's just getting to know yourself and getting to know your finances and how they interact and how they affect each other. So when we talk about our values, it's the same way that it's how we determine what we're going to prioritize, right? So something like values, it's it's a little bit more abstract, a little bit more broad, but it helps point us in the direction of, say, when we're making our financial decisions, when we're planning, do we, for example, would we rather spend this X amount of money in the budget? Would we rather save that and put it towards a trip for vacationing, for traveling in a few months? Or would we prefer to put this towards going out to eat with a significant other today or tomorrow or, whatever? Or would you prefer to save it up for a nice gaming PC instead of a trip out? It's, again, like anything, it's just figuring out what is most important to us. What would we rather have? And then when we're aware, we can make better, theoretically, we can make better, more conscious decisions about, well, I was thinking we could go out, but come to think of it, I don't really care that much, and we've already gone out twice, and if we go out again, then that's the end of, this section of money that we've put aside for the month. And if we keep doing this, like I honestly, I would rather put this towards my PC or a trip this summer. So let's eat in tonight, whatever it might be, right? So that's kind of the reasoning behind pinning down our top values, right? So for our next step, auditing our finances, that one I think, fairly self-explanatory, but it's great to do it on the back of figuring out our values and our priorities, because now we theoretically should have a little bit clearer picture of what is most important to us, even if, it's still a muddy a muddy picture. At least you have a picture, right? Theoretically, ideally, then you can kind of start to hammer it out more concretely. So when you do your audit, the idea is to look at everything. Where are you spending your money? Where is your money going? And it's, we're all coming from various places, so some of us might already have an idea of exactly where all of our money is going. Some of us might have no clue. Some of us are probably in between, right? So either way, the vast majority of us are probably going to benefit from some type of audit. So go back, sit down, set out 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, I don't know, and go through, look at all of your accounts, whether that might be 1, 2, or 13, all of your debit, credit, bank account, savings, checkings, investments if you have them, any, whatever it might be, and looking at your income streams. And then, but aside from it's important to know how much money is coming in, but right now the important thing that we're trying to the most important thing that we're trying to find and look at is where we're spending the money. So not even necessarily how much particularly, it's good to know how much you're spending, because you might have spent, you might have bought one category of something once, but it was a whole lot of money. So, but the idea is not so much the specific numbers, but the relative amount in comparison to everything else and how much you have. And if you're spending a lot of money somewhere that you don't actually really care about all that much, you know what I mean? So that's the idea behind auditing. And another option too, you can do both, of course, is to track your spending for the next month or even the next week. Honestly, it's always helpful to track your spending regardless, but particularly if you're looking at where am I spending my money. So that will give you a really good idea of how well you are fitting into your personal values with your finances. If you are actually, kind of, so to speak, putting your money where your mouth is, or if you're not, or if you're somewhere in the sliding scale in between, right? It's all important to know. So those are our next 2 steps, and that worksheet, like I said, from Dr. Renee Brown, is in the description box if you would like to do that. If not, there are a lot of other values free options on the internet for identifying your core values. And that is the end of our second video.